Hello, this is episode 202 of the Comedy Slab. I'm Adrian Lacey in the southeast of England. He, Shane O'Connor, is in the Midlands thereof. So I hear you cry, what is the formula of the show? Well, each week, we put a different comedy on the slab of comedy, be it TV, radio, internet, digital, podcast, whatever, and we review it and see what we make of it, score it out of 5 each, making a total out of 10 by the end of the show. We take it in turns, there being 2 of us. 1 week it's him, 1 week it's me, setting the homework. I set it last week, and I put on the slab an American show called Superstore. Now, if you're brand new to the show, it's lovely to have you along, brand new to the slab, that is. Thanks for joining us. I should say, if there is a flaw in our formula, which we happen to think is absolutely brilliant, I call it high concept. You might call it low concept, dear listener. Anyway, if there is, shall we say, a tenderness or weakness to the plan, we only review 1 episode of whatever the series might be. Assuming it is a series, it could be a one-off. That's pretty unusual to do that. But so if we hit on a weaker episode, then you might argue, yeah, it's not fair to the whole series. But putting that on the table up front, the truth is we are only reviewing that episode on that week. So Superstore, Series 2, Episode 1. And I have to confess, it was only as I was viewing the show yesterday, because I live on the edge, used to live on the edge of Tutankhamun, but now it's just the edge of deadlines. Thank you.
I thought you lived near the edge and used to see Bono come round.
Yeah, because I'm in Millionaires Row.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I pronounce it Millionaires Row, because they very often do, in my experience. Bless you, you're a great audience. You can join us again. Anyway, I'm afraid this episode disappears quite quickly, but let me suggest, dear listener, if hopefully we've whetted your appetite for the show, whether or not we like it, we think either way you should make your own mind up, of course. That you'll look to a different episode from maybe a different series even, but one that's available. I should say this particular one is, as I speak, available on itv.com or the ITV app in the UK. But Shane, as ever, will put in the blurb where else you can come across Superstore, Series 2, Episode 1, or an episode, shall we say, of your own choosing. But Episode 1 is the one we're going to get into. So, 2, just before we get to put the show on the slab, that TV show, Superstore, we have comedy news each week. And this week, I pinged to you with loads of notice, possibly even an hour or more. Nice little thing. It involves comedy, it involves a podcast, and it involves, amongst others, the wonderful Richard Herring. What's not to like? The only thing I think you might not like, which is why I framed the question, which I'm about to give the way I did. The headline is, and this is, dear friends, if you want to follow this in the news section of chortle.co.uk, a wonderful comedy resource online, London gets a new comedy podcast festival. And I framed it, that's wonderful, but you might be asking, why don't other parts of the country also get a comedy podcast festival? First thoughts on this article and indeed the comedy podcast festival, Jay?
I don't know why they have to turn something into something else, first of all. That's always my reaction. Like, there's the genre of the podcast is fine as it is. Why do we have to have a podcast festival? Do you know what I mean? Richard Herring doesn't float my boat at all. Never really has done. And I've really tried with his podcast that he does in the West End.
Richard Herring, Leicester Square Theatre podcast.
But they're just too long. I mean, like, hour and a half. I watched one, just to give a fair crack of the whip. I watched one on YouTube tonight before we recorded this. An hour and a half, and the first 10 minutes were like adverts, sponsorship, like housekeeping.
Catch us doing something not part of the core show for the first 10 minutes.
Where the fire exits are, and you know what I mean? Well, it's 10 minutes when I do it. It's significantly longer when you do it. But
moving swiftly along.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear you on that, but I knew you'd be a bit Eeyore about it, but why not? If someone wants to do a festival and there's enough people to do it, no one's forcing you to go or listen.
No, and that's the good thing about it. That is
You have no intention of taking
10
any further
points for
interest.
that.
I really was hoping you'd like Richard Herring so I could do all my name dropping, but nothing floated your boat in the categories. You don't like awards, do you? It's probably like panel shows.
I didn't really see what the point of it was either. The other than it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? In a way, it's like, we've got this, so we've got this, and you kind of think, well, yeah, but what's the point of it? Well, because we've got this, this festival. Yeah, but what does it do? Well, it's this, and it's the festival, and this is what it is. The guy who's organised it, was quite. I mean, you could have sent him it with no notice at all because it's only like 5 paragraphs. The story, isn't it? It said the festival founder Giles Gear said the UK is full to the brim with brilliant podcasts that amuse and entertain, and so we want to create a festival that celebrates them. I hate that word, celebrates. I really do. From established shows to lesser-known gems. I mean, what does that even mean? What does that even mean? So the UK is full of to the brim of brilliant podcasts. So we thought we'd put
pods, if we're being accurate here.
So we thought that
you probably hate that as well. I like the term podo, which my colleague used to use.
Yeah, so we'll have it in London because the UK is full to the brim. Oh, okay, fine. Bye then.
It's full to the brim of media executives in London. Okay, look, to some extent, I get your world weariness about it because there is a clique. If we think of what is already established, which is radio awards, can you try not to shake your head when I'm trying at least... Can I finish the sentence, please?
I hadn't kind of finished the thing.
Obviously not, dear listener.
Which was that it says we wanted smaller shows to have the opportunity to connect. Well, why the bloody hell you invited Richard Herring then? Hasn't he got enough of an audience share now? If you wanted smaller ones,
you know how it works. If it was you or me hosting it, they'd all say Shane who, Adrian who. With Richard Herring, at least, if you love your comedy and you know comedy podcasts, he's a number one choice, I would say. I haven't got the stats in front of me, but I would think he scores. I think he's pretty much up there.
It doesn't say he's presenting it. It says it will feature shows including Richard Herring's West End thing, We Are History with Angela Barnes and John O'Farrell, Pappy's Flat Share Slam Down.
I think we should put that on the slab next week.
And the birthday
comedy slam down.
And the birthday girl's house party. And you kind of think, well, if you wanted to celebrate the underdog, then get the underdogs on.
Yeah, but you need to. Okay, I take your point. Maybe I skim Reddit too much, but equally, it is possible Richard Herring will be involved, and he will give it a higher profile if he is. It does need someone with heft.
The other thing about it is, when I read it, and I thought, do you remember in radio when they used to get these goddamn awful press releases? And you got nothing to put in your show, so you used to end up doing a load of old carp about something or other because somebody had sent a press release out. And this has got this written all over it, like the last line is the website for the company that are organising it. And I thought, it's just a plug for them, really. But it didn't excite me, it didn't tell me anything. The quote didn't tell me what it was going to... It's going to celebrate them. What, are they going to have a little party and bite a cake? Put candles on it. I don't understand what that means. We use this language without even thinking what it means or whether it actually means anything at all.
Well, I'm not sure you've got the capacity to celebrate anything other than possibly your children's birthdays and maybe your wife's. But if you think of what that means, celebrate a birthday, that's fairly straightforward.
Isn't that
You're being a little bit disingenuous, I accuse you of.
Isn't that a euphemistic way of saying you don't like the same things that I do and therefore I think you're a curmudgeon?
I've never said I don't like your children.
Do you know what I mean?
They're lovely.
That's when people say, "Oh, you're being rude." What did you say? You accuse me of being Eeyore.
He always says that.
But that just means that I don't like the things that you like,
Well, clearly you don't, which include I love press releases and you don't like this
You're
one.
a big fan of press releases, aren't you?
I imagine, to be fair to chortle.co.uk, I don't think they've got the person power to, write everything, send reporters out and all of that. So press releases, it's not the end of the world. I deal with PRs. They're not really on the dark side. It's an open secret that most of them were journalists at one stage, and So if they're bad people, I must be a bad person too. Shall we move on then? Because I don't see you celebrating.
Nobody shouted, "No, you're not there," did they? That's what I was waiting for. I thought
strange that.
Because no, you're not. But they
no.
Answer
came there none. Right. Well, okay, but we leave it to our dear beloved audience to go to. Dare I even mention cheerfulearful.co.uk?
Yeah,
which,
why don't you give them a free plug like everybody else?
Well, why not? Why not?
You know.
We're giving a free plug to Superstore, which we're going to move on to. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Which is the show we're putting on the slab, and the question has to be to the curmudgeon, otherwise known as the Shanester. What did you think of it? What was your feeling in the pit of your stomach, good, bad, or indigestion, when I put it on the slab? Set it as your homework at the end of last week's show.
Well, I think I said last week, I can't remember whether I did, that this has kind of been on my radar for a considerable period of time, and I kept seeing trailers for it, and I thought, I must get around to watching that, but I just never did. Not because of, not that I didn't like anything I didn't see. So kind of quite pleased that it was on the radar. Really,
you're kind of being force fed, but almost willingly.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? I always like that when we've had that a couple of times when I thought, I must get around to watching it. I must get around to watching it, and you never do.
Okay, be that as it may, we need to hear the first of two audio clips from the show after I've set the scene. Now, you told me, I think actually, my Alison said first, this is an American adaptation of the UK's sitcom Trolled.
Well, it depends who you ask.
Right.
It quite clearly depends who you ask, because some say, I must apologise about the traffic tonight. It's like everybody's dogs come out in the car tonight. I do. I'm sorry. Some say it is an adaptation, although it's not a transfer in that sense. Some say it's inspired by.
Right.
Which is
Does that mean it's nicked?
Another way of saying it, nicked it, isn't it, really? I've been inspired by your 22-inch television, so I've put one in my trolley and run out with it.
Yes.
And others say it's not connected at all. So it depends where you look, because I found all three of those stories on the internet. Well,
I was going to say it must be true if it's on the internet, but if it's self-contradictory... I'm just seeing what the wonderful wiki says about it. It says, see also Trolled, a similar British series developed and broadcast some years earlier, which may have been an inspiration. So that's obviously one of the three options.
Yeah.
Okay, you pays your money, and well, if you know Trolled, see what you think of this next audio clip and what we make of the show generally. So, Series 2, Episode 1, it's called Olympics, and we join them. It's this fictitious American, I suppose, would it be fair to say a Walmart-type store?
I think it's very fair to say Walmart. I think the colours of the uniform are Walmart. I think the pilot as well was shot in a fully functioning Kmart in the States. So, yeah, it's a big box store, isn't it, as they call them over there?
Right, with a lot of big boxes in them. What they're doing as a promotion is setting up their own Olympics, as in the title of the episode. And I realised how, once I played back the audio, how visual this clip is. So fantastic choice by me, obviously. But I've nicked the idea, so I'm going to blame Shane, because I've taken it from the top of the show, which is his style for setting the scene. But I do need to set the visual scene, which is, because it's not clear unless you happen to know all the characters' names. But even then, it might not be clear. The store manager, with an amazing voice, which we will get onto, no doubt, is introducing. You know how they come into the whatever the arena is when I'm thinking of the Beijing Olympics, and it might have been actually quite soon after that. They have a parade, which is every country, and I've got to say it's the most god awful, boring part of any Olympics, and it's pure politics, because every country has its own herald, mascot, and athletes. And whoever thought of it?
Such a curmudgeon. That's the best bit of the Olympics. Honestly.
Anyway, moving swiftly on. We'll see what we make of it in audio only, but he is introducing different departments within the store.
All right, Eeyore, get on with it.
Toys and and sporting goods.
Is a life jacket really necessary?
Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. Don't talk to
Our
me.
assistant manager, Dina.
I'm not a part of this. I just happen to be walking in the same direction.
And now, to light the Cloud9 Olympic cauldron, is Store 1217's oldest living employee. Myrtle, now. There she is, an American hero.
Glenn, you did not tell me you'd be using actual fire.
Yes, I did. I put it in my column in the newsletter.
Nobody reads Glenn's corner,
Did
okay?
you read my thing on gluten?
Absolutely not.
Well, it was
This
good.
is a
I got
hazard.
a lot of. How is that a hazard?
That's the fire, not the
hazard?
gluten.
Glenn.
No, Myrtle, that's not the cauldron.
Oh.
It's okay. It's just a little baby fire. All right, okay, I've got this. I've got this. Everybody, evacuate the store.
No! Nobody run! We have an elected store fire marshal who will lead us from the building safely. Elias! Where is Elias?
Poor old Myrtle set fire to the toilet rolls, didn't she? Instead of the instead of the.
That's ageist.
Yeah.
Shocking.
They'd set up a what's it for the what do they call that where they set they light the eternal flame in the crucible or whatever it is.
Right.
And they'd set it was a converted barbecue, wasn't it? I think they'd set up in the shop for that.
But also, what I failed to say, but you sort of touched on, so she sets fire to a whole pile of toilet rolls. They're in one of those display stack type things.
That's it. And as soon as he hits it with the fire extinguisher, they fly all over the room, flaming as they go, don't they? So
there's a bit of physical comedy there. But did the comedy float your boat? And can we have your tabloid headline?
Yes, my headline is, and I think this will probably give you part way to putting you out your misery. My headline was, "Is there comedy in store? I'm not sure I buy it."
Oh, like that. Bit long for tabloid, but as I did the other week, that's a double width Financial Times headline, I think.
Oh, I say. Awfully proud of that, then.
You've at least put more thought into it than I've managed in recent weeks.
It's a funny one, isn't it, this? I don't.
It is.
It's one
But
of
not
those...
funny.
It's one of those cookie cutter comedies, isn't it, from the United States that they do so, I wouldn't say so well, but they do so prolifically.
Can you remind me? I was going to pretend I was asking on behalf of the audience, asking for a friend.
Yes.
I sort of know. I mean, is cookie cutter, is that the same as sort of, it's a bit apple pie and mother, whatever the phrase is?
No, like kind of homogenous, like sort of a cookie cutter. So they're all they just cut them all out identically, you know.
Okay. Well, you've never enjoyed any of my cookies, which are each individual. They're like snowflakes. No two are the same.
That's the trouble, you see. That's why I prefer mine identical. No, I'm sat there and I'm thinking, this could have been, I don't know, 30 Rock or maybe
Don't you
not.
think, isn't it a bit even lighter than... Well, I've got a question. Sorry, carry on with your list, because I will then come in and pose what for me is a massive question, which is sort of, might be allied to where you're coming from. Then again, I'm not sure.
Well, I was going to say, it could have been 30 Rock or Parks and Recreation or Community, if you've seen that one. They're all kind of got the same feel to them. They feel heavily like they come out of the same mould.
Right. Or are covered in mould. One of the two.
Yeah.
What I was going to say was, it is possible to read it in two ways, one of which I think you've touched on beautifully there. Another one is there actually some real barbs, are there? Real barbs, and I don't mean the rating system if you work in TV. Are there some real barbs under the surface? And he's actually quite a biting satire of American junk culture. Could you read it that way, or is it just me?
I think you would be generous if you were reading it that way.
Generous in what sense?
Because I don't think that was the intention. I don't think it was intention in that way. Certainly, I don't think they sat down and thought, right, let's write something really quite biting, satirical, cutting edge. I think they kind of think, okay, let's use the successful template that we've used on other comedy programs, and let's transplant it to scenario. I feel this. If you want to sum this up in one word, and again, I'm not suggesting that this is a good or a bad thing. I'm just putting it out there and saying this is how I feel. It is created. The word I would use would be corporate. It
is made by
corporate comedy, isn't it?
It's made by NBC.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the C stands for corporation, does it not?
Yeah.
And yes, and I mean, at one level you could say, maybe it's the beginning, end, and all the bits in between. It's about getting eyeballs on soap powder ads and car ads and all that jazz. I was trying to put myself. I so wish I was in a real job as opposed to working in broadcasting. I was trying to put myself. Years ago, there was a guy I knew, and he had a housemate who drove a van. Who, in the lounge, you couldn't get from the kitchen to my mate's room without crossing through the lounge. So he'd be watching. I can't remember his name now. Lovely guy. But this is decades ago. But he would watch things like I remember him watching Noel's house party. It must have been at that stage. So it tells us how long ago it is. Over 20 years ago. But the point is, he'd had a hard day at the steering wheel. I mean, they do ridiculous numbers of what they call drops if he was delivery driving. Used to be 200. And when I spoke to a guy, he said he had 210 in one day. Under COVID, that went up to flipping 300 a day. 300 of anything in any day. I can write 300 words in a day, but I can't do 300 deliveries. So hats off to him. But as I watched him, because I had to pass, as I say, between him and the telly. He probably hated me for that. I just thought this is a curious thing, watching someone watch TV. I know we've now got a series called Gogglebox. It's not the same thing. If you watch from the side, and he loved it. He was laughing all the right places. We've talked about Andy Hamilton, I think, was writing the script at that stage for Noel. And I thought, well, there's a guy who can relax in front of the telly because he's had a hard day at work. But I couldn't relax in front of this show. Probably partly guilt through not being a delivery driver and having a proper job. I just couldn't. I mean, I did it for the Slab, but I couldn't imagine me sitting down watching this. Or indeed, I do accept that, it is part of the cookie cutter fraternity. It's just an odd thing to sit down. I mean, it would pass through as a mild relaxant, either with a beer or a cup of tea next to you. It doesn't offend. That's what you mean by corporate, isn't it? It doesn't frighten the horses. But whether you'd remember any of it and quote any of it in 10 minutes, never mind 10 years.
Yeah, it doesn't kind of do anything, does it? I mean, I came away from it feeling neither enamoured nor cheated. And it leaves you with this kind of numbness, in a sense, that you've kind of, I mean, I didn't sit there looking at the clock. I didn't think, I can't, is there much more of this to watch? It didn't drag in that sense. It didn't make me laugh. It didn't make me laugh out loud. It didn't make me laugh internally very much. But it didn't, you're right, it doesn't offend, does it? I think that's the important thing, is that it kind of just does a job. What's that word? Moving wallpaper.
Yeah.
It's kind of just there, isn't it, really? It's just 6 series this went for, This ran for 6 series, yeah. And it committed suicide in the end, oddly enough. I mean, because from what I've read, I mean, I don't know it that well. But they said from series kind of 2 onwards, it just became a kind of pushing a woke agenda down people's throats. And he said it got to the stage where, this is what a few people have said, it got to the stage where it was almost like they were seeing how much they could do it. And it just killed the show, killed the ratings. People just like turned off in droves. They said, I don't want it.
Well, I could see the numbers in front of me. It went from 7.2 million, that was average for season 1, down to, this would obviously be the American audience, wouldn't be counting outside of that, but it would be minimal, I would think. I don't know. I mean, it might have been, probably was sold as far as they could sell it. But so 7.2 million first series. By the end, 2.8 million series 6. I'm not necessarily buying your view on that, because we are probably not on the same page on what's called the woke agenda. But I'm interested to know what the source was for you.
They were. I was just having a look here now. Their reviews on IMDb.
Right.
One said, once decent, now an unfunny woke mess. I tune in for a laugh, not to get a leftist ideology crammed down my throat every 2 minutes. They might as well have retitled this "Straight White Men Are Evil." And let me be clear, I'm a gay man and mixed race myself, and I think any show with blatant political propaganda should be banned. Somebody else is saying that, very, very similar kind of thing. They're saying, okay, I know it's a light comedy, but I often stop watching because of the political correctness. Said some complain he got too PC and political. My complaint is they don't know how to take the ordinary and make it funny. So,
okay,
I don't know. I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm saying that's what people said happened, because I've not seen it for myself, so I couldn't even say that I agree with that, because I've not seen it through on in later series. But what I'm saying is that it's interesting that something that was kind of middle of the road, not offending, managed to blow its own toes off. It's incredible in a way, if that's what happened,
Well, yeah, if that's what's happened. I mean, I've thrown to the pot, not that it necessarily addresses all those points. And of course, as we keep saying, it's from Series 2 we're watching. Oh, and before I forget, the production credit goes three ways. Spitzer Holding Company, The District, and Universal. Well, Universal's fairly corporate, I would suggest. So those are the three companies taking credit collectively for it. The central character we heard with the voice, which we've got to get onto. I did start working on it, but I let myself down. I got distracted by something else. But anyway, he is the store manager. Surprise, surprise, he's a Christian. But of course, this is where it sits on the fence. He both wants to send up Christians, and the mere fact that he's a little bit dull and not quite with it, which is a phrase that only elderly people like me use, who aren't with it. It wants to send him up, and at the same time, it wants to resolve everything neatly and happy ever after, and also keep on board the gay people that you suspect he might not be so friendly towards if he really was an evangelical Christian. I don't know. I mean, I was involved in that church, but this side of the pond, but that was in my teens. So how embracing they are of gay people now, I'm not really qualified to comment on. I know there'll be an element that will be more liberal, and there'll be an element that won't. I don't know what the proportions are. Where was I going with that rambling sentence? I'm trying to address the point there. We're both speculating a bit, and also because it's Series 2, it hasn't blown its feet off just yet, in your phrase, or toes, I should have said. So we can only really comment on this episode. I mean, what some people might call a lefty agenda, I might call a bit progressive. It's trying to understand what does it mean to be American. It's sort of hinting at, you can come from other nations and so on, but it ties knots in its own shoelaces, doesn't it, to continue the foot metaphor?
Massage. Yeah, I mean, the whole, I mean, there is that whole agenda of hating your own country is kind of pretty central. Hating your own people in your own country is pretty central too.
But it doesn't, though, does it?
Oh, it does. I mean, the way that they ridicule the Christian guy, the Glenn character. He's very much the butt of the jokes, isn't he? And he's saying how great America is, and they kind of just, all the jokes are about how it's not any other country's greater or as great, or.
But doesn't it end happily ever after in that sense? It pulls its punches.
Supposed to. I mean, by that, I couldn't really care, to be honest with you, and not in a bad way, but like I was just like, oh, okay, all right, that's it. It's really weird. The Glenn character, I mean, I thought it was so overdone, and the voice, he got these kind of voice out there. And I thought,
who did he remind you of?
I thought he talks like that. Nobody talks like that. I thought, oh no, actually, Bill Gates and Kermit the Frog do. So
I was reminded of Emo. Do you remember Emo?
Oh yeah,
With his
Emo
long
Phillips.
hair,
Yeah,
and he'd come on.
Yeah.
I heard him on Jonathan Ross.
I had a nursery school teacher. She was, by and large.
See, I'm laughing. But yes, it didn't have any of those quotable laugh out loud moments, did it? Really? No lols.
Do you know, one of the things, and I wanted to mention this too, because you write a bit, and
oh, thanks.
I mean,
which bit?
It was only a note to the milkman last night. I remember you doing that one.
That would be a high word count for me, I have to say.
But I just wonder whether this is a product also of the writers' room concept, rather than the Galton and Simpson or the I can't think of another writing. Sure, that's pathetic, isn't it?
Dick Francis and Ian Lafreniere, if we're going
Alcock
to
and
that
Brown, exactly,
period.
yeah. Burke and Hare, and no,
Birkenhead.
Birkenhead. I just wonder whether that's this kind of writing by committee, whether that's what kills this particular goose, if it ever was a goose. Well,
but is there any other approach to comedy in the States? That's a sweeping hint at a generalisation, isn't it? I mean, I think
you pretty well you nailed it there. I don't think there is. I think even when they take adaptations like The Office, they then put it into their machine. And
sausage machine.
Yeah, their writer's room sausage machine, and that's what comes out the other side. I can't think of apart from probably something like Seinfeld, but then they had writers on that. They had Larry David.
But isn't it often the case, because we know that, and we've discussed this before, that American runs of series are hugely, factors of 10 times as long as UK series.
Yeah.
Isn't it that we can get confused because the whole team can get credited, and yet actually the whole team weren't involved in every moment of that particular episode that you've just watched.
No,
the whole team will work overtime across those 26 shows or whatever it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of blurred lines, isn't there, really, in all of that? But I just wonder whether that's why they all tend to come out the same, because they all go through the same process, and the individual ownership isn't there, is it? In the same way, like I say, that when you write a Hancock, or you write a Steptoe and Son, or even an Are You Being Served, there is an individualistic element to it that you put your imprint on it because you're the writer. But,
authorship. I'll just quickly quote Russell Kay, because I have to say I was seduced by it for many years. In fact, I tried with 3 other mates. We thought we'd import it single-handedly with no previous experience, except we all worked in TV, but we were techies. And, 4 is not a big team by American standards, but it would be more unusual in the UK. And I felt like I was in a band, actually, which is both good and bad. You know how bands can fall out, and I'm not saying there was a fallout. I actually drifted off early because I thought, I would rather be in a band than... But it's no reflection on my mates I was working with, and they were very decent about it, and they said they would credit me with, if it ever took off, which, surprise, it didn't, but that I would have got a credit for helping, based on an original idea by. And I thought that was generous of them, considering my contribution and my walking early. But Russell Kane said, yes, you can hear this has been written by a team. They've knocked all the edges off. Mm. And then suddenly, the scales fell from my eyes or my ears, whichever it was. And I thought, Russell Kane's got a point. It's exactly your point about authorship and individual style.
Even more interesting, if you go back to a couple of episodes of the Comedy Slab ago, we were talking about Monty Python. And even when you had a group of people who could have quite easily sat around a table and written as a team, they all paired off.
Yeah.
It's the English way. It's the only way, darling.
Lennon and McCartney, darling.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Although that wasn't 50-50, that was more 80-20. But let's not get on to the Fabs. Let us come back to this show, fabulous or otherwise. Superstore, Series 2, Episode 1, and audio clip number 2. So we've stayed with the Olympic theme, and actually they've got someone in who is... she's not top of the top, but she has at least been an Olympic athlete. Is it Missy Jones? I'm terrible with names, as regular listeners know.
Yeah, she's a real athlete, isn't she, apparently? The woman who played her, yeah.
Brilliant. Anyway, so there's a lot of positive thinking going on, and she is, I suppose, spreading the word. She's there to talk to the shoppers, but also she ends up talking more, I guess, to the staff and advising them about their dreams. Oh, and again, explaining the visuals, when she says, see this, she's holding up a piece of paper with scribbled on it in not very neat writing, we'll find out why, is the word Olympics. And she's showing it to a younger member of staff.
See this? This looks like a stupid person wrote it, right? Well, it was me. When I was 5, I wrote that. And I put it on my wall, and I work towards it every day. Because there's nothing you can't do if you work hard, focus, and believe in yourself.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Can I touch it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a card. It's not magic. Because guess where the real magic is?
Is it in me?
Yeah, bingo. It's in you. And it's not real. Magic isn't real. It's tricks done by a liar. Remember that.
The Philippines has over 19 different regional languages. Hello, indecisive much? Where is Mateo?
Oh, you know what? Maybe take it easy on Mateo today.
Why?
Well, not just Mateo. You know, there's a lot of employees here from different countries, and, you know, making them say America is the best, that's just not cool.
It's the Olympics. It's all about rooting for your country and saying all the other countries eat beans.
Well, but it's also about the countries coming together, you know? That's why the rings are interlocked.
God, it makes your eyes bleed, doesn't it? This idea that you can't say that the country that you're in is the greatest country as far as you're concerned because it's not cool. You just think, wow, it's already starting to put the writing on the wall. Cecily Strong is the lady who played the fictional Olympic medalist Missy Jones, and apparently she is she's a real life Olympic medalist. I'm not sure what in. Wasn't acting, obviously, was it? But I don't know.
Well, I was just about to say I thought it was a convincing role play.
Yeah, she was. In fairness, considering the rest of the cast, I think she acquitted herself quite well. Yeah, it's really. Do you know? Here's the really weird thing as well. The guy who played a character called Garrett, a guy called Colton Dunn, is a wheelchair user in the show, and he's not a wheelchair user in real life. Yes, I'll just put it out there. I'm just with all.
So it's not as right on as it wants to think it is.
Well, exactly. I mean, it doesn't bother me in the slightest. But I just thought, I see. Oh, I thought.
Yeah, well, I think there are plenty of good actors who happen to be wheelchair users. And by the way, most wheelchair users get out of a wheelchair every now and again, but you never see that on the telly. God forbid that we'd have to cope with the complexity that a wheelchair user might get out, go up a few steps, then go back in the wheelchair. And I don't mean Matt Lucas in Little Britain. I could see the way the cogs are wearing. By the way, equally, it's not banned to say your country is number one, but neither should it be banned for someone to challenge it.
I don't see what there is to challenge. I mean, to say it's not cool, I just think he's just. That's where we're at now, isn't it?
But it's a fictional character saying to another fictional character, it's not cool. The fictional character, the manager, who happens to be a Christian,
you don't want me to find you a long list. You don't want me to find you a long list of people who say that in real life. Then, no, is that what you're saying? You don't think it happens in real life?
No, I didn't say that at all.
Well, that's the point.
I said it wasn't unchallenged within the show.
No, but I suppose he should have said, "Well, it's not cool to say that it's not cool." Because it's okay to challenge that.
I'm not going to say... fictional character can say one thing and another one can say another thing, and they're not fighting, are they? They're not killing each other, and they don't hate each other.
No.
So I really don't see what the problem is. I don't even see why that should be left-wing. Why is that left-wing?
I don't know why it is. I mean, maybe it stems out of
You're
communism.
telling me it is, though, aren't you? Or you're telling me that...
I'm just saying that there is a growing trend to be disparaging towards your own country and to not like people to be patriotic.
Is it growing?
Oh yeah,
is it really growing?
I think
Has
so.
it not always been there?
Well, it's a vocal minority then, very vocal.
Anyway, welcome to Politics Weekly.
Don't get me wrong, not that I'm particularly patriotic, but I'm really surprised that when people are anti their own country that they're living in. I think, well, if you don't like the country that you were born in, go and live somewhere else. Then, if you think somebody else is doing it better.
And we're talking about a fictional thing. I don't see why you say you don't care, but you are actually quite worked up about it.
No, I'm not worked up about it. I'm just saying that it exists. It is there, and I just always find it strange. So when you see in fiction like that, it's not. It's that thing where you say, well, they're fictional characters. Yeah, I know, but you can only take it on what the writers have written for them to say. And therefore they must either have that belief, or they believe that somebody else has that belief, or they would like to see a world where that belief is there.
But I'd have to go away and ask what the middle thing is, but I'll contemplate that in a bath someday. But
my point is that they may be fictional characters, but the words are written by real people.
I get that, as I'm writing something semi-fictional myself. So, yes, I can vouch.
But are you a real person?
Oh, definitely not. Hey, what about that Google sentient being? No, we haven't got time. Don't do that, Dave. Don't unplug me. Google it if you're not sure what the hell we're talking about. I think it's more than time to mark this fabulous work, by which I might be talking about fables, literally. Certainly a fictional work. What we make of it out of 5, what we each want to give it out of 5. Holt, who goes first?
Shall I go? I mean, I really struggled with thinking about what score I would give it, because, as I say, I didn't walk away from it thinking, well, that's half an hour of my life I'll never get back, or what a
well, that is technically correct.
Well, it is, yes.
Times 2.
But I didn't think, what a horrid, tawdry little example of comedy that was, or that wasn't funny at all. Although it wasn't that funny. I don't know why I feel like this, but I'm sort of hovering around a 2 to 2.5. I'm thinking I'm going to have to give it a 2.
Right.
And I suppose you could say on the one hand that's quite mean, but I think for what it was and how it was done, it does have to be 2 for me.
Not in for me.
2 for me.
Okay. Be that as it may, I'm inclined to give it 3.5, but there is an exchange rate between our scoring, isn't there? For new listeners, I think I'm in dollars and he's in pounds. So my 3.5 is possibly your 3, which is only half a notch away where you're considering to be.
Right.
If that's not too convoluted. So what's that? Seeking mathematical advice, that's 5.5 out of 10.
5.5.
Just over the half mark.
Over the halfway line, yeah.
Scrapes it through. What have you got for me, big boy, next week on the slab of comedy?
I thought I'd go off to the radio, or as the French call it, the radio.
Fair dues. It's spelt the same. I'm not sure it's pronounced that way, but...
Oh, they're just putting it on. Don't encourage them. It was a guy we
France
mentioned
hater
before, and I can't remember for the life of me why we'd mentioned him. It's a sitcom. It's a radio sitcom. 15-minute an episode, so we're going to have to do 2, I'm afraid.
Don't be afraid.
And I'm afraid. And it's written by a guy who writes. He's a composer. He writes music. He'd written the music for Horrible Histories. Anyway, cut to the chase. This is called The Music Teacher, and it's written by a guy called Richie Webb. And I thought we'd go with Series 1, Episode 1 and 2. I think they're just called Episode 1 and Episode 2.
And I'm hoping we'll find that somewhere on BBC Sounds, or it is a BBC production, I'm guessing.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Well, we'll say if it was an independent production later, but next week. But it's aired on the BBC at least. Okay, thank you very much. The music teacher. Why do I think that might be ever so slightly autobiographical for someone who writes music? Yeah. We'll find out and we'll discuss next week. I look forward to it. I do. I come with a clean slate, never heard it, and I love music, so... I love rock and roll, so put another dime in the jukebox, baby. That's my view.
Don't call me baby.
Fantastic.
Too quick. What was the middle bit?
Just rewind, for goodness sakes. Is that it?
Yourself.
I will, but I'll stop recording first. Matron.